All right. Hey, beautiful people. It's been a little while, but I've got an incredible show for you today. I think season 2 has started off in an incredible way. And today will be no different. It will be no different from that. Have you ever met someone who was just passionate about everything that they did? Anything that they put their hand on, they went after it with all gusto. Well, you know, at My Big Full Authentic Life, that's a part of it. We talk about how to live that big, full, authentic life with passion and on purpose. Because I'm going to tell you, passion is the thing that'll drive you to get up when you don't want to. Passion is the thing that will make you pursue when everything else within you says you shouldn't. It'll make you get up. It'll make you do it. Passion is a driving force. And I will tell you, today I'm going to introduce to you someone who is indeed driven. And I'm not just talking about being passionate for passion's sake. I'm talking about someone who is producing with that passion. And I tell you, it's a beautiful story. But I know it has not all been peaches and cream. I know there's been some ups and downs, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of that today. And so I'm really excited. I'm really excited about today's show. And so thank you. Thank you for being with me and spending this amount of time with me. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the people that support us, the people that help us. And the way that I want to do that is I really want to start by asking a simple question. And this question is to all the entrepreneurs and business owners. Did you know that 3 out of 4 people judge your business based on the way that it looks? Yeah, 3 out of 4 people judge your business simply on the way that it looks. That's why it's imperative that you have a really good digital presence, because people are looking and they're judging. So if you are looking for someone to help with that, for an organization to come and help make this digital presence stuff easy and understandable, you need to contact the folks at Thing Hat Thing Creative. That's right, Thing Hat Thing Creative, THT Creative. See, they specialize in digital marketing, web development, and they help you look good so that you can focus on what you do best, and that's running your business. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, I strongly encourage you to reach out to thtcreative.com. That's thtcreative.com, and do it today. Why? So that you can do your thing, grow your business, do what you need to do to look good, all right? So listen, we're about to jump into this interview, and I am so excited about what we're going to uncover today. Let's get it. This is about the journey. Your journey. What's your purpose? Hey, listen, welcome to My Big Full Authentic Life, the podcast, where we really try to dig into what does it mean to live a big, a full, and authentic life. And today, my guest is a man that wears many hats. He's an entrepreneur, an advocate, a leader, a husband, a father, a brother, a trailblazer, a visionary, and man about town. His passion for healthy living and community development shines brightly in everything he does. Hailing from the beautiful state of Columbia, South Carolina, where he lives with his wife and his daughter, this guy holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in agribusiness from South Carolina State University. Go Bulldogs. And he's using his extensive experience and his expertise to transform urban farming. As the owner of Ashford Family Farms, LLC, and the founder of the Urban Farming Project, he's on a mission to teach people how to grow big food in small places. He's a pioneer in community agriculture, hosting conferences and teaching gardening skills in schools and community centers. Now, through his work, This man has impacted countless lives by promoting healthy food production and addressing food insecurity in local communities. And as if those things were not enough, get this guy is also a children's book author, crafting stories like Carrie Goes Farming and Kids' Guides to Gardening Like a Pro. His stories are designed to celebrate family unity and to inspire and stimulate young minds. And his dedication to sustainability and his commitment to fostering literacy and STEM based learning make him a true force for good. Now, he's not just growing food, he's cultivating healthier communities and brighter futures. So, if you would, please help me give the warmest welcome to this visionary leader in urban farming and community development. Now, he's my first friend, but he's also my champion. Please welcome Dexter Ashford. Dexter, welcome, man.
How you doing, guy? How you doing? I almost called you by our family name because I knew you back before everybody in the world knew you. So that's how I refer to you. And I was just about to say that, man. But
Hey,
buddy,
man, it's all gravy, man.
man,
He talking about my nickname, Bubba. He can call
yeah,
me Bubba. It's gravy.
I didn't even know his first name was LaMondré until he went to first grade. That's how long we've been knowing each other. All I ever called him was Bubba for like 3 or 4. He was the second friend I ever made. I was his first friend, but his sister got to the fence before he did. So his sister was my first friend, but he got to the fence next. So he was my second friend.
Absolutely.
This
See,
was
Dexter's grandmother lived right next to my grandmother and my
yeah.
grandfather. And we lived with my grandmother and my
We live,
grandfather.
we live with
And
our grandmother.
so exactly. And so when my sister went out to the gate, she first met Dexter. And then I'm following my sister. So, because, that's my sister's my superhero. So,
Yeah, big
And
sister
so
for
I
sure.
waddled right outside. And sure enough, Dexter's my first friend and my sister's second friend. Dexter, man, I appreciate you taking the
Man,
time, man, to be on the show today, man, and just to share your experiences, man. I 1000% appreciate that, man.
man, first let me say we're proud of you. Very proud. I was bragging to my mom about you, man, and I'm proud to even know you. I mean, you're doing some big things, and I get to say that I knew Bubba back when he was Bubba before y'all knew Lamondre. I knew, I knew Bubba, so that goes way back, man. I am proud of you. You have done some stuff I'm impressed with. I mean, you are all over everywhere. People literally all over the country know you. And
Man,
I think that's coming from a boy from where we came from.
right.
I qualified for free lunch, and that was when they used
Hey,
to give out
hey,
the
we
ticket.
did, bro. Me
So
too.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
going for free lunch, yeah, that was
yeah.
big for us. That's
Man, the
big. You
journey
did really
the
good.
journey has been amazing. The journey has been amazing, and I'll tell you, the things that I said in your intro, even in the pre-intro, when I said someone who is passionate about everything that they do, man, that's you, man. And I want to get right into that, man. Tell me, man, where did that passion come from? What are the things that drive you?
I I yeah, I see it in my little girl, and I think it's genetic. It's like we focus, like we pick one thing and we go. So it's not like we mean to be passionate. We just can't help it. It's just by accident. We just do that. Like if I'm picking this thing, I am going to do that thing. Um, and this gardening was something that always relaxed me. There's a thing out now, and I'm about to get certification in it called horticultural therapy. And some kind of way, scientists just decided to put it in scientific terms that gardening makes people feel good. I remember when I was
Mm,
trying to survive in corporate America, and I hated that. Um, I had this one pepper plant that I was growing. It was the only thing I was living on the third in a third story apartment, and I had a pepper plant on the deck. Didn't even realize the plant wasn't getting enough sunshine because that was how little I knew about really gardening anything at the time. But I used to go out there every day. I could tell you how many peppers was on that plant. And I could tell you if a new one was forming, because it just relaxed me to sit there and look at the plant. Um, and from that, I went and built a grow bed. My mom let me build a grow bed in her backyard. I went to Lowe's and I bought their scrap wood because at the time I couldn't afford regular lumber. I
mhm.
bought that scrap wood because it was like really, really discounted, and took some screws. And this is how little I knew about building grow beds at the time. The screws I used were actually supposed to be used on metal. So I had metal
Uh,
screws going into wood, into piece wood that I bought at a discount price. but I went and built me a grow bed and bought some cheap dirt that had no nutrients in it. That's how little I knew about anything. I mean, if it's possible to do something dead wrong and still be doing it, I made about every mistake you can make doing it,
Well,
but I
believe
did
me,
it.
that's definitely possible, brother. And I think that what a part of what that is a testament to going after something that moves you. You may not have had all the answers. You may not have had all of the right way to do it, but something drove you to I gotta do this. And so you started putting metal screws in the wood boxes and growing plants. Now you said something interested in there. You said you were in corporate America and that you were miserable in that. Tell me a little bit about that, man.
I am not the type of person that should ever be in anybody's office sitting. I was before you and I started this interview today. I had to do a budget. We're now trying to expand the farm, so I had to do a budget in order to try to qualify for a loan for the expansion. And I really hate sitting in
Mm,
anybody's desk doing it. Is so boring to me. It is really easy for me to go to sleep like that. I was just not functional. I was not good at anybody's office. Um, Put me outside and let me do stuff. I have another business. I do pressure washing. My customers love me. I do great work, but I have to keep moving. I'm one of those people that I have to be outside doing something. That's
yeah.
why gardening fits so good for me. Building grow beds. If you check my Facebook page, I've built some different types of grow beds because I want people to really enjoy it. I want
Mhm.
people to be able to take an aesthetic view of what they're doing and really appreciate the aesthetics of the functionality of what they're doing. I can
Mhm.
functionally grow food, but I can make it look pretty. I can add flowers
Absolutely.
to it. I can add shapes to beds. Um, I built a what I call a PTP for my little girl. Basically, I've got string beans running up bamboo poles coming out of a bucket, and I built it in the shape of a teepee, a little circle, and I got the poles running up, so it's going to look like a teepee. And when the string beans close in, they're going to close in around it, so she can actually walk into it and pick string beans.
Ah, that's fantastic, man. That is fantastic. See, I love the innovation of it because whenever you jump into something or you get into something that you really love and you find that this is my niche, this is what I'm going to do, you begin to have this innovation that rises and you start to discover things and you start to create
Yep.
things and you start to make things. Now, you said that when you were in corporate America, you hated sitting at the desk. You're not the type of person that wants to go through budgets and all that kind of stuff. And it was so funny because I remember at one point in your life, you were actually a stockbroker.
Yes,
Dexter, you
I
were sitting
was,
at a desk all the time, bruh.
and that one part of my learning process. And I learned I was chasing money, and I learned early in life I didn't know. I thought I had to go where the money was. What I want to say to anybody is, do what you love, and the money will follow you. Do the
Mm,
thing that you love doing. Do the thing that you're passionate about, and let the money come to you. That stockbroker part of my life, Series 7 and 63, which is the licensed stockbroker. I mean, we had people that really, really, really wanted that. I was smart enough to get it, but it just didn't satisfy me. Running behind
right.
rich people and making friends with a bunch of rich people and kissing their behinds to try to get their money, chasing people's money is just not my idea of how I want to make a living.
So, what was the turning point for you? What was that defining moment where you said, you know what, I have to make a change, I have to make a difference? And what was it that made you realize that the chase for money was not it for you?
I am probably one of God's more hard headed kids. Um, so I realized he took a while for me to figure out I couldn't do this because I just was not being good at it. Then I moved on and I realized, okay, at the same time that I was not really good at this, I was reading articles about in my community. I was born and raised in the 29203 zip code. And I was listening to, we at one point we had the highest amputation rate in the country. It's
Mhm.
been a while, but
Mhm.
we had which what that means is that per capita we had more people receiving amputations of their limbs than anywhere else in the entire country. Our zip code
Right.
29203, and I did not like that.
Right.
So it was at that point that I decided, okay, well, if getting fresh food is the problem, then I can go to the find some farmers. And at the time, I didn't know as many farmers. So I went to the state farmers market, and I would buy food and I would take it to some of our senior centers and set up there and sell fresh food. So that
Right.
was my first uh, farmers market that I did. I would just go there and sell the fresh food, and all of those things add up. All of my experiences culminated in learning experiences, and what I learned about our community, and I kind of understood why the grocery stores disappeared in our community. It's hard to survive if you only get one good week of the month. If you got
Mm-hmm.
4 weeks in a month, and as a business you only get one good week, because what happens in our communities, that check comes on the first of the month,
Right.
so you're gonna sell some stuff. Second week of the month, you may sell some stuff, not as much as the first week. Third week of the month, it's really dwindling down. And fourth week of the month, you're not making any money. And in fact, a
Right.
lot of the grocery stores were experiencing loss because people were coming in and taking stuff because they didn't have the money.
Right.
So,
Right.
which you live and you learn from that. So, what I learned as a business person is, while I want to provide for my people, and I'm going to make sure to have an avenue for my people, we do have to build a business that everybody can feel comfortable coming to. Everybody can come and take part in this business, because you need everybody's money.
Right.
And you have to make a sale every week of the month. So
Right. Right. And so understanding, having that realization, understanding what the problem was. That's one of the things that led you to make that leap out of corporate life into this. And I want to talk a little bit more too about this when you said um, about the business were struggling because they only really had one good week in the month. So the result of that is it creates this thing called a food desert. Explain what a food desert is as we talk about food insecurity.
if you're in a metropolitan area and you're more than 1 mile away from fresh food, if you're in a rural area and you're more than 10 miles away from a fresh food source, you are in a food desert. Now, not a food source, but if your closest food source is 7-Eleven or the dollar store doesn't sell a lot of fresh vegetables. McDonald's, if that's your closest food source, and you can't get to some place where you can buy vegetables, fresh stuff, you're in a food desert.
Yeah.
That's considered a food desert, and it happens a lot in our area, in areas where high concentration of minorities. A lot of times that's because we have a lower income. Income might be dependent on receiving money at the first of the month, and produce doesn't last an extremely long time. Fresh produce has a short shelf life. So
Right.
if you buy something hoping that you're going to sell it and it doesn't sell on the first of the month, it's probably not going to make it to the next first of the month, which means as a buyer, you just lost what you put into there because you weren't able to sell it. And
Right.
it's hard to sustain those types of losses as a seller. And for a community, when the seller goes out of business, when the guy who had the fresh food decides to leave because he can't make any money, now on the first of the month, you don't even have a place that's close to you to go get the fresh food. So now we're stuck because of that cycle. Like, I don't have anywhere to go because I didn't have the money to support that guy, so he had to go so he could support his family. So it becomes a cycle that at some point we've got to break. And I think the the biggest way I see to break it is we're gonna have to do economic development in our community. I've pushed that a lot.
Yeah.
um, that was another thing that helped me get out of corporate America. Um, you cannot leave a job to your child. I don't care how
Mm.
good you were at your job. You cannot will that job or leave that job in a trust to your child. You
Right.
can't leave a business to your child. You can't leave investments to your child. You can leave insurance to your child. You can educate your child on how to make money in a business, but you cannot, as a family asset, pass on somebody else's job. And I think until we begin to develop our assets in our community, until we decide that we've got to train kids to build, to become, if you become an independent farmer, if you're making money, if you become someone who assists with farming. This week we looked at, oh goodness, trailers, heavy duty trailers. Well, if you're not going to be a farmer, maybe you buy a trailer and rent the trailer out. People always need junk removed. So crazy stuff, blue collar stuff that I think we have not, as a community, and I understand why we didn't take advantage of blue collar stuff, or we left it alone,
Right.
because we got the short end of the stick on blue collar. But blue collar pays a lot now.
Yeah.
Diesel engineers. I know guys that pressure wash houses and do six figures pressure washing.
Absolutely.
So these things pay a lot, but we have been taught to move away from it and go get a college degree. I got two of them, and it
Hmm.
turns out I was really good at doing stuff with my hands. I don't regret any of it because I got the education and experience and met the folks. But we've got to learn to, if nothing else, do both. And
So
we've
with
got
that, absolutely, absolutely. So along with community development, we're also talking about economic development. We're talking about a shift in the mindset also, because the thing that has been ingrained in us has been, listen, go get your education, go to school so you don't have to work with your hands. Get an education, go to school, so that you don't have to do labor. And the truth is, without labor, society crumbles.
yeah,
All of our social structures crumble without people who have the skills to weld, without people who don't have the skills, with the skills to grow food, without people who have the skills to do those kinds of things. Society would not survive. I don't care what kind of AI, I don't care what kind of educational paths come to that places. Without people to put their hands on it, our society fails. And to be honest with you, some of the most intelligent people I know were people who worked with their hands. My grandfather, Nathaniel Knight, he did not complete his formal education. In fact, he worked as a maintenance man for the state of South Carolina. That's all I ever knew him was. Of course, he did other things in his life, but by the time I came along as his grandson, that was his job. He was a maintenance man for the state of South Carolina. But my grandfather did some of everything, and he was one of the most intelligent people I ever met. Even with a sixth grade education, every morning that man would read the newspaper from cover to cover. He was informed, he knew what was going on. Then in the afternoons, after he got off of work, I would always come home from school and there'd be a carburetor sitting, and I'm going to say this, sitting on the kitchen table. My grandma hated it, but my grandfather was breaking down carburetors and doing these things for people because he had an intelligence, he had an aptitude, and he had the idea to hustle to get more in order to strengthen his family outside of what his state job provided. And like I said, we've been taught to kind of move away from that, to get away from that, the mentality of, wait a minute, it's in my hands, I can do something about it. And I want to say something else too, because this was something that jumped out to me when you were talking. You said you learned that the situation with food insecurity and food deserts within our community and how it impacted our community. What gave you the thought that, and I can do something about it? Where did that come from? Because a lot of people heard that. A lot of people knew the statistic about the area code in which we live, 29203, was had the highest rate of amputations, the highest rate of diabetes, the highest rate of high blood pressure and hypertension. But very few people said, and I can do something about that. What gave you the unmitigated gall to say, I can do something about this?
I don't know. I thought everybody had the idea. I was like, okay, there's got to be somebody that wants to do something. And I looked for it. I was like, man, is somebody doing something? I was looking for somebody to do something. And one day the idea said, you can do that. You just try it. And that's how it happened. And I think with
Mm,
me, like I said, I'm one of God's more hard headed kids. So at the time, I wasn't doing much else. So I was like, well, look, you ain't got nothing else to do. Go ahead and do it. And I went and did it. And it was a learning experience. At the
yeah,
same time, the place that I was going, they had a greenhouse in the back, so they would let me work their greenhouse, and I built again, shout out to YouTube University. If you guys
yeah,
don't know what I'm talking about, just go to YouTube if you got a question. Uh, Shout out to YouTube University because there was a guy in Kentucky that had built a deep root hydroponic system, and I built a deep root hydroponic system. I bought the tools, everything. I didn't know what I was doing to start with, but I built that system. I built the first one was 20 buckets, and then I built another 20 buckets in the same because I had more space. Then I built a lady another 20 buckets. So I learned how to build the hydroponic system, and sure enough, it's come in handy because we're looking at doing as part of the expansion, we want to do hydroponic lettuce. So we'll
Gotcha.
see. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But
Now, for those who are somewhat uninitiated, man, what exactly is a hydroponic system, man?
hydroponics is growing food without dirt. Crazy thing, plants don't necessarily need dirt to grow. What plants need is stability for their roots, something they can hold on to, and they need nutrients and water. That does
Gotcha.
not have to be soil. You can add the nutrients to the water and run the nutrients into the water and give the plant something to grow on. Usually, the median that the plant grows on would be something like perlite. Hydrogen used to be popular, but it was rather expensive. So, perlite or coconut shell, shaved
Mhm.
coconut shells, and I forget what exactly that's called, but that's basically what it is. The husk from the coconut ground up has no real nutritional value, but it lets the plant roots go down, hold on to it, so the plant can stand straight up. So
It's like a really good base for it.
yes, it's a and that's what they need. They need something that the root can hold on to and let the plant grow straight up. Once it has that, you send the nutrients to it. Um, Now the next big thing is can it be called organic? It can be called naturally grown because you can do it. You can do it with naturally grown stuff. Um, and I think the big question is the mineral extract. Is it considered organic? So I'm gonna have to look into that so I can know whether to call it organic or just strictly hydroponic.
That's
Um,
really interesting because that whole organic thing is interesting because you go to the grocery store and you see these things marked organic and they cost, you know, two times the cost of the other stuff. And then you realize in some instances what you think of organic is not necessarily organic. And so
exactly.
I know this is a little bit off a line of what we were talking about, but can you talk to us about that a little bit, man? Like what does being organic really mean?
Organic is you have to not have used chemicals for the growth of your plant and to keep pet for pesticides for I think 7 years. If
Okay.
your farm has been growing for a total of 7 years and you have not used chemical pesticides or chemical nutrients for your plant, then I think you can be organic. Um, in the alternative for those 7 years, you can be naturally grown, which is
Okay.
another title, which means that you grew naturally. You until you can get to organic level. And my farm, because I'm going to be doing hydroponics, may stay naturally grown, which means that
Gotcha.
if organic is a certification, and you have
Mhm.
to achieve that certification. And depending on where you are, that may not be. You don't want to put as many chemicals on as they do some of these vegetables coming out of some of these foreign countries where they're loaded down with chemicals um, just to make that perfect red tomato.
Mhm.
But then you realize tomatoes don't have to be perfect and red. And sometimes people want a tomato with a little bit of character in it. They want the tomatoes with the humps and lumps. They want the heirloom stuff. Um,
Absolutely, because of that flavor, man.
the flavor in it, man, and a smaller farmer usually uses less chemical. I don't know very many farmers that use a whole bunch of chemicals. Most of them use very little, if any. Most are organic and don't even know it. But
Gotcha.
man, people love the taste of that food and the fact that that food is fresh and you can come out and see your food grown. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things with Ashford Family Farms I really want people to be able to do. I want to do field trips for kids when they come to my farm where you can see and I'm not even going to be big into animals. I'll probably have enough animals that I can process just for my family. But
Mhm.
I would definitely like for kids to see pigs, cows, chickens, ducks, and understand that your food comes out of the ground, does not come out of Walmart. Kids
Yeah.
don't really realize that carrots don't come out of Walmart. Walmart bought those carrots from somewhere, and they're not all like Bugs Bunny's carrot, the long orange carrot.
Right.
Carrots get some funny shapes and a lot of different colors. So
You know
I
what's
want kids to
interesting,
see it.
man? I remember being a kid, and I was fortunate because the school that I went to was named Brockman. It was a school for nothing but students with disabilities. But we had a greenhouse on the outside of the school, and I was fortunate because my teacher, because I believe the way that they did it was whoever had an interest in doing something with the greenhouse, they allowed that teacher to do it. Well, my teacher was a gardener, and she decided that she would have us do the greenhouse. And every year that I was there, we did the entire greenhouse year round, and we did an annual sale, a spring sale on all of the produce and things that we grew. Now, I grew up with gardens, as you know. My grandfather, my grandmother, they had this huge garden in the background, so I was familiar with it. But this was the first time that me, being a person in a wheelchair, could actually get my hands in the
Yeah.
dirt and grow stuff myself. Now, the thing that did for me as a child, first of all, it made me realize, wait a minute, this is how they did it back in the day. This is how people ate. This is how people produce their own food for their communities. Now, the cool thing is, we also created a co op out of that. So here you are having these little elementary school kids who were not only growing the plants, growing the herbs, growing the geraniums and all that kind of stuff, but we were also looking at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, doing the co-ops, doing the sales. In addition to that, in addition to that, we would have to send our soil off to Clemson University to get the different chemical balances, the pH balance, and all that kind of stuff. And so it put us in that mindset of, not only was it about growing plants, but it was also about science. It was also about academia. It was also about what creates a thriving environment. And I was really blessed in that. And I see a lot of that in what you're doing now with Carrie Goes Farming, and teaching kids how to garden like pros. And it's amazing what those kinds of things do. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Those are whole careers, man. What you just mentioned are entire careers, and they all shoot off of a basic love of what we do. Um, my little girl's going to be doing goodness, a farmer's market uh, slot this year because I want her to experience that. I want her to grow up doing business. I want her to grow up and realize that, okay, I can make some money for myself. So I'm not dependent on going out and getting a job. Man, everything you just said, I loved. I was getting excited while you were talking, man, because I didn't know you got to play in a greenhouse at that stage, and we're actually working on building a co-op. So a co-op is one of the things that we're working on building. We're doing the greenhouses here, man. The opportunities for kids. There's so many opportunities that we as a people are rarely represented. Farmers, first of all, farmers are only 2 to 3% of the population. So the farm population is dwindling and it's aging out. Farmers are
Hmm.
getting older every year because few people are coming in. We're letting big agro, which puts whatever they want to put in our food, put in our food. Um, of that 2 to 3%, only 1% of the 2 to 3% are black farmers.
Mm.
We are really, really losing this particular genre.
Hold on, I want you
We
to say
are
that again. Only 1% of that 2 or 3% are
right.
African American or black farmers.
Out of 100 people, 1%, 2% would be two people. Out of, well, let's do 1,000. Out of 1,000 people, 2% would be what, 20 people?
Mhm.
Out of that 20 people, 1% of the 20 people would be black. So out of 1,000 farmers, what you get? What's 1% of 20? 10% of 20 is 2-1. For every 1,000 farmers you get, for every 1,000 people you get, one of them would be a black farmer. That's not
Wow.
a lot. And
No.
and black farmers tend to work with smaller acreage. So where you might have those big Indiana corn farmers that got the big those big what combines, those big corn combines,
Mhm.
$100,000 equipment. A black farmer, a lot of the ones that we were talking about with in the co-op are doing like 20 acres.
Mm.
So
Gotcha.
20 acres is not a whole lot.
So we're
Even the
talking about really small farms.
small farms, struggling farms. If you're not familiar with John Boyd won what he called the Pigford lawsuit against the United States because we were discriminated against. We were not given loans as readily as the white farmers. Loans we were given were smaller, higher interest rates, and shorter time to pay them back. And we had a better payback rate.
Mm.
When you average it out, the black farmers were actually paying back better than the white farmers, but the white farmer would turn in a loan, and average turnaround time on that loan was 30 days, and you knew something. Average turnaround time on a black farm, if they turned them in on the same day, was 360 days, over a year. It took the USDA, if they got a black farmer's application and a white farmer's application on the same day, 30 days later, the white farmer knew something. 1 year later, the black farmer would hear something. And most often it was no.
Right.
So we were discriminated against in a number of ways. That's how he won the first settlement. Then we had a $2.2 billion settlement. It was the $5 billion settlement that black farmers got for that discrimination. That the white farmers then sued the country, the United States USDA for. They sued them because they said they were discriminated against because the USDA paid out black farmers who were discriminated against. That literally
How
happened.
now?
White farmers said,
When did that happen?
Biden, I think it was during Biden's administration.
So this is
Biden,
recent.
Biden said the loss the we won the case. USDA was going to pay the black farmers for the discrimination that they had faced, um, and the white farmers decided to sue and said, "Well, you're discriminating against us because we're white."
Mm.
Mind you, the USDA discriminated against black farmers, and the white farmers have been receiving fair treatment. So the lawsuit was won because black farmers were discriminated against, as opposed to white farmers. Then the white farmers said, "Well, you discriminate against us because we're white now by paying them money that you discriminated against them for." And
You
Biden
know what?
ended up
That
Biden some kind of way Biden recalled the thing. Yeah, yeah, that really happened. You can
yeah.
Google that.
No,
You can Google that. That
listen.
really happened.
I definitely will. That is absolutely wow. And
Yeah, that
obviously,
really
there
happened.
have always been challenges in terms of being black farmers. There's always been challenges. There's been challenges just being a farmer, period, across the board. And then when we absolutely combine the fact that you're a farmer from a traditionally marginalized community, it represents incredible compounded challenges. I want to know, what are some of the challenges that you have faced personally on this journey? Because I know with all the things that you've done, that didn't come without building muscle. And in order to build muscle, that means that there is resistance, there is struggle, there is work that has to be done. What are some of the challenges that you faced on your journey that you could share with us?
The challenges, man, are traditional, and if you don't, if you you probably do realize wealth was built in the land. When they freed the slaves, they turned people loose and said, "Okay, you're free, but you don't have an education, you don't have a house, you don't have any resources, you just free." And then these white folks that you work for told you to get off their land. So what happened? You ended up coming back working for them, saying, "Well, because you had nothing else, you were starving. You literally were starving. They gave them nothing. We didn't get out 40 acres and a mule."
Mhm.
So one of the things that I believe that again we're going to have to do is get focused on getting land so that we have something that we can call home. Your wealth is going to be accumulated on your land.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the traditional struggles, what has been like the defining moment for you in terms of where you are now?
Man, it is at this moment getting land, and it's still a fight. So I talked to the wife of John Boyd, and she was like, "Start where you are." And I've been gardening, and I have my farm number. I turned my house into a farm number. I was blessed to get a house, turn my house into a farm. So I've been gardening, and I've couple things you live and you learn. Had not filed a Schedule F. If you're a farmer, you have to file a Schedule F. So I was claiming the income for the farm on my taxes on a Schedule C, where I really should have been claiming a Schedule F. So I decided to, okay, take the back out, because if you're farming, this is important to know. There is no minimum acreage to farm. Farms in
Hmm.
Hawaii are very small. There's no minimum acreage in the country to farm. There is no minimum age. I'm going to get my daughter a farm number so that she qualifies for farm benefits. Because as long as she's working on the farm and you have the intent to make over $1,000 a year, notice the word I said, intent. You may not make $1,000 a year, but as long as you have the intent to make over $1,000 a year, you qualify as a farmer. So my biggest struggle has been the expansion that I'm working on right now.
Hmm.
We are literally working to expand to, and I said our farmers have small plots of 20 acres. I'm trying to expand to just 10,
Hmm.
because if we can expand to 10, the math on what we want to do makes sense, that we can do education, we can show some stuff, and we can still make it not just profitable, but we can make it very beneficial for us to do.
Right.
Profitable if you're a dollar over expenses. Nobody wants to be just $1 over expenses. You want
Right.
to make sure that you're actually making some money at this thing. And the educational benefit, because when I look at it not just from my perspective. I look at it from a legacy perspective. I want to leave
Hmm.
this to my daughter, my grandchildren, to children I never meet that come through me. I want to leave that farm so that they have some place to call home, so that you can come here and make some money. Because as long as you've got that land, you've got that opportunity, that base
Yeah.
that stands strong. And I want to pass it on to our community, because if
Yeah.
I can teach other people to do what I do, if nothing else, we can build an economy within the economy that supports each other. If
Right.
I grow the tomatoes, you grow the cucumbers, and we can do that co-op you talked about, so that
Right.
we have a community that provides healthy food in an area in an age where Bill Gates basically was heavy into the development of that laboratory grown chicken. You heard about that?
Hmm.
Chicken grown in a lab, like it never had a beak, never had feathers. They put the enzymes and all that stuff in a test tube, and they let it grow, and it grew in the lab, like it was never walking. And the USDA just said you can call that food. The regulators allowed you to call, not just food, excuse me, chicken. That lab grown chicken, the regulators now allow you to call that chicken.
The lab
I
grown
was
chicken that
listening.
was never a chicken
That
can be
never was a
called
chicken.
chicken.
You can say that is a chicken, and there's no distinguishing. So whatever you're getting from chicken from McDonald's could easily be that.
See,
I
this is
was
why I
just
think it's
looking
so
at,
important. This is why I think it's so important that we do understand farming, that we do have the ability to produce our own food, and that we know where it's coming from, that we
you
know
can go
actually
see
where it's
their
coming
farming.
from.
You
Because
can go see those chickens, and you can go see the vegetables and how they're growing them. That makes a
right.
difference. Your food should be local.
That was going to be my exact point, and I understand that, with big farms and those kinds of things and shipping stuff all over the world, it makes things more efficient, people it easier, but it's killing us. It's literally killing us, and it I would much rather know that, okay, no, these tomatoes came from Ashford Family Farms, or this chicken came from John Brown down, I would
Yep.
rather know that, because I understand that, okay, there was in this water source.
Yep.
This is where that came from. But now we're eating chickens that were never chickens. That's
And they don't have to tell you. They don't have to tell you that that wasn't chicken. They
yeah.
just chicken, and that's it. And the workers may not even know. You get the
Yeah.
stuff that's in the pack, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah, that is very important, that you know your producer, that you can go out and look at his stuff and talk to that guy and feel, let him be a part of your community. There's a thing and I called Teflon. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about Donald Trump. They call him the Teflon. I mean Teflon, the actual material that Teflon was made of. They were putting that stuff on cooking pans, and then
Yeah.
years later they figured out that
Advertised it
Teflon.
that way too.
Yeah,
Advertised it
they
that
did.
way.
And then they figured out Teflon releases a chemical that causes cancer. But they gave you that stuff to cook on for years. Now it releases a chemical that causes cancer. What are they gonna figure out 10 years from now that the chemicals that grew that chicken caused? What are the
Right.
problems that are gonna be in? They don't even know yet.
Right.
So
Right.
even if you pay a little bit more, which you might, but look at it this way: the difference you pay goes directly to the farmer, not the marketing, not the big agro, not to some corporate investors' pocket, not to the CEO, not to the board members. It goes to your farmer. Even if
Yeah.
you pay a little bit more, it's worth it to know where your food came from. Your health is well worth any extra you might pay a local farmer for that, because you know
Yeah.
where your food came from. As opposed to, read another article, the some of the dirtiest vegetables you can eat, and they were tomatoes that have been grown in Mexico. When you're buying tomatoes in December in South Carolina, when very few farmers have tomatoes, now if you have a greenhouse like I might do, that's producing hydroponic tomatoes in the fall, you in the winter, you can get away with that. You can get fresh tomatoes in the winter. Most of the tomatoes in Walmart are coming out of Mexico. Mexico sends some of the dirtiest tomatoes. They have all kinds of chemicals on that stuff. When you get your food out there, you have to wash it. Those stuff, they're so worried about the aesthetics of the food, which food that has flaws has more character. And
Right.
food naturally grown has food that has more flaws. But what they do is they kill all the bugs so that it doesn't have a flaw, so that they can sell more tomatoes. But they put a heavy coat of bad chemicals on that stuff.
Yeah.
If you look, Google it, 15 dirtiest vegetables or something like that.
Wow. And I think that serves to show not only economically why it's important that we support local farmers and local farms, but also why health wise it's important because we don't know. It looks good. It looks good. So if it looks good, I'm going for the bright and shiny versus what is good for me because I don't know the difference between them. So let me ask you this question, man, because you mentioned legacy before as we were talking about this. How do you want your work to be remembered in terms of what you're doing now with this? Because it's funny. Once you left corporate America, I never heard corporate America from you again. I never heard you look back. I never heard you turn back. So, what is the legacy that you want to leave with this?
This man helped build his community.
Yeah,
When you look back at me, I want folks to know that I love my people. I love them, and I did stuff that I thought would build them.
yeah,
I taught people how to take stuff and build a lasting environment for our community. We have to build an economic structure, and I've said this for years. We have to build a strong economic base. A huge part of that, obviously, is going to be building a strong food base for us. We've got to get back to respecting our blue collar workers. See, our grandfathers were blue collar.
absolutely.
Our uncles did blue collar work. They
Hmm.
didn't get the chance to go to college. They went to the military if they could, or they were mechanics or whatever, and we respected that because he was no less a man because he did blue collar. But we got treated bad in the trades. Let's be honest.
Hmm.
Sometimes we weren't allowed to join the unions. Unions didn't let black folks in. Um, if we were farmers, we would work just as hard, if not harder, and we would literally be paid less for our produce. If you walked in as a black farmer, you could have the better produce and you would be paid less because you were black. If
Hmm.
you worked for somebody, they paid you much of nothing and they worked you like a rented mule. So, understandably, black folks got away from farming. They got as
Right.
far away from that farm as they could because all they had was hard work and very little to show for it. And it kept them poor. Those kids got away and they had to go. Now we have an opportunity to come back to farming, to come back to our land, to buy our land, to work our land, and to trade with anybody, everybody, but to help build even a parallel economy, um, where we can survive and sustain. There are people. There's a guy on YouTube, a white guy named Curtis Stone, and he preaches that heavily. He's got his own source of farmers. I mean, Curtis Stone is who I was looking at when I started doing my micro farming.
Hmm.
Curtis Stone would take 2 acres of land and make six figures. They
Hmm.
would do Jean Claude Fontier out of Canada. These guys are guys who would take 1 acres, 2 acres, and they would do what's called a market garden, where they would work that garden intensely. They wouldn't even use a tractor because a regular farm, most about 2/3 of the land used on a regular farm is used for tractor tires. So if you go out into a field, 2/3 of that field is spaced out so the tractor's tires can get through it. These guys
Hmm.
wouldn't use tractor tires. They pull it. pull the produce closer because it could actually grow closer. And they would make about a 12, maybe an 18-inch walking space in between the rows, 36-inch row. So it's a 3 foot row, and in that 3 foot row, they might run 3 rows of collard greens or 3 rows of whatever, space another 18 inches where they could walk between the rows, and they
Hmm.
would intensely farm like that. It'd be a giant garden,
Wow.
a 1 acre garden is huge, and they were making 6 figures off that. That
Wow.
guy went and bought Curtis Stone went and bought him a space on a mountain. And Curtis has 3 water sources. He has a reservoir, um, he has a well, and he has a rain catchment system. So he
Mm.
catches rain. He has an above ground reservoir, and he has a well. And that's how if the water goes out, he got water. He's got 3 different sources that don't depend on city water. If the lights
Right.
go out, he has a solar panel set up where he's off grid. This
So
guy
he's
is
really completely off grid.
This guy is 6 figures and off grid with a parallel economy, meaning everything that he needs, he knows somebody who can do. If
You
I
know
need
what?
something built, I got a guy who can build, who's a carpenter. If I need my diesel engine worked on, I know a diesel mechanic, and
Mm.
we trade business with each other. This guy's
Wow.
when you say off grid, Bubba, he more off grid than you thought about. Off
Right.
grid is I don't have to take my money into your town anytime. I can bring
Is
my
is
people out here.
is that what you're looking to do?
Bubba, I would love it. But don't get me wrong, we trade business with everybody. We'll do business. If you want to come on and learn about farming on my farm, please come on and learn on my farm. If you want to buy something from me, come on and learn on my farm. But here's the catch. If you decide you don't want to buy something from me, I'm not going out of business because you didn't buy from me.
Right.
If you decide you don't want to show up on my farm or you don't like me, I know enough people that we're still in the market doing something. So none of
Right.
us will fail if all of us come together.
If oh,
All
say that again.
None of us will fail if all of us come together, but all of us will fail if none of us come together.
Let me tell a story. Let me tell a story, man. And this illustrates um this illustrates your philosophy because my next step was I was going to talk about philosophy, your approach. But I want to give something that is truly the embodiment of you. And many people who've heard me speak around the country have heard me tell this story. So I do a lot of inclusion kinds of things, and I talk about champions. I talk about community, and I tell the story about when we were young, when you and I were young, we used to play kickball in front of my house. And I
You
couldn't
break up.
run. I could kick, but I couldn't run. And whenever we would play kickball, and for those of you who don't know what kickball is, it's like baseball without the bat. All right, you kick the ball and you run the bases and all that kind of good stuff. Well, whenever it was my time, because I was always included in the games, whenever it was my time, Dexter himself would just say, "I'm running for Bubba." And yo, when he would say that, I would be like, yes, sir. Dexter's running for me. And the reason that I loved it when Dexter said he would run for me is because Dexter was the fastest in the group. Out of all of them, Dexter was the fastest. He could spin, run, juke, all that good stuff. And so I would kick the ball and Dexter would take off running for me. And as he's rounding the bases, they're throwing the ball, they missed him, boom, home safe. And most of the time, our team won. Our team won. And I tell that story because I say that Dexter was my champion in that. I know you heard me say in the intro, he's my champion. That's what I meant. Dexter championed my cause. What does that mean? A champion is someone who may not be affected by a specific issue, but they have some privilege. They have some influence in a particular area, and they're willing to use their privilege and their influence to give someone who does not have access in a certain area access to that area. And in turn, just like there may be areas that he has influences, there's areas that I may have influence in. And I can be his champion because I can open doors for him. And this is what he's talking about with this parallel economy. This is what he's talking about when he's talking about how we as a community, if we come together, none of us will fail. Had it not been for Dexter running for me, I would not have been able to participate fairly in the game at all. But because he was willing to give what influence and privilege he had, that allowed me to do so. And this has really been kind of like the arcing theme of the work that you've done, Dexter. This has been the arcing theme of that. You are indeed a champion and you're looking for other champions to support as well. So it's not just about building up you, but it's about the betterment of the community. And brother, I thank you for having that perspective. I thank you for having that philosophy and being able to share that. Do you know that there are people all around this country who know your name, who've never met you because of what you did for me as a child?
No, I didn't know. I
Yeah,
had
yeah. Because I tell that story almost every time I speak, particularly if it's about if it's about growing community and developing champions within organizations. And so I appreciate that from you, man. I want to move to this a little bit, man. So as you know, this is about helping people find the tools and the inspiration and the motivation that they need to live a big, full, and authentic life. What are some of the daily habits or tools or things that you use to stay on task and to do what it is that you do?
this is gonna sound really, really simple. First prayer. You start out with prayer,
Why
and
prayer?
you man, you got to get grounded. You got to figure out which way you're supposed to go on a thing. And with me, I get my answers in the morning, usually in the shower. Like I'm in the bathroom, and then God start talking to me all kinds of ideas that I come in, and I can go in and do some of those. And I've seen some crazy success. Um, I got a notion to post something in the bathroom. God, I'll just go ahead and post it. And I'm like, man, them people don't want to see that. That's gonna be so corny. I don't even want to do that. I might. And then I did it. That post got shared 1,600 times from
Hmm,
a post I didn't want to make. So when I say God speaks to you, He really does. Sometimes it's that thing you don't really want to do. Um, be willing to take a chance, and it's tough, and it's hard, and it's scary. Be willing to take a chance. Read, educate, and motivate. You got to stay motivated. I love Myron Golden. I don't know if you guys ever listen to Myron Golden on YouTube. Um, Myron puts a lot of good free stuff on YouTube. I even bought his book, Boss Moves by Myron Golden. Wanted to go to his conference, but I think he's just gotten tired of doing his conference because Myron makes so much money. He don't care. Like I don't. I made a lot of money. I like doing the conference. I didn't like doing all the work to get to the conference built up, so I'm not doing it again. And he is just like that. Like he made Myron has people to pay him like $1 million to be his student. Like
hmm.
he's got people to pay $1 million, half a million, 300,000. It's crazy, and they are paying that. And you don't need a lot, but you learned a lot from Myron Golden. If you got a
Gotcha.
$1,000 primary offer, then you only need 10 people to buy that primary offer somewhere in the world. So
Yeah,
I was listening to your intro. Those people that do the web stuff, I need to talk to them because if you got
absolutely,
a good offer, you only need 10 people a month to buy it to make $10,000 a month.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So prayer, be willing to take a chance, and
Yes.
education, educating and motivating yourself.
Yes. Very important. You got to do
Fantastic.
that every day, man. You got to wake up and do it every day.
Fantastic, fantastic, man. So tell me this, man. What's happening now? I know that you've written. I mentioned that you're an author, and I know you've written a book called "Carrie Goes Farming," and you also have written a book talking about how to teach kids to garden like pros, man, to farming like pros, man. Tell me what's going on. What are you doing? Where we going, man?
I got I'm trying to do one book a year. And I sit and talk with my daughter. If you ever have a kid, it'll change your life.
Mm,
They open you up in ways that you never thought about. Because I promise you, 10 years ago, I did not see myself as an author, and certainly not of children's books.
mm.
If I thought about being an author, it would not have been of children's books. Well, I got a little girl, and Daddy liked gardening, so the little girl would come out in the garden with Daddy, and she would pull my green tomatoes off my plants, so I had to stop her from coming in the garden. But she got a little older, she got a little better. So actually, she's been farming now. I can technically say she's been in the garden now for 3 years. So she's been farming. She's got 3 years of farm experience at 5 years
Wow.
old. So um, the next thing, she and I were talking, and we rode by a place here in Columbia, and every time we ride by there, there's a blue tractor sitting there. And me being an aspiring big farmer, man, I look at that tractor like, man, I want that tractor. They better come get that tractor before somebody take that tractor. And she said, "The raccoon's gonna take that tractor." I said, "What? Raccoon's gonna take that tractor?" I said, "How would they do it?" And we started talking. I just let her spin. And so our next book is because we've got two to be released. We have an older version of Carrie Goes Farming called "Are My Tomatoes Ready Yet?" And that's for kids that are 8 or 9 years old. And
Hmm.
then we have Raccoon Stole My Tractor. That's the next one. Then I have that's gonna be funny. The stuff the raccoons did. Of course, she was in donuts and muffins, so immediately she wanted the raccoons to steal the tractor and go eat donuts and muffins. We gonna we gonna do a little bit different with that, but we gonna get the donuts and muffins.
Hmm.
Um, so that book is actually finished. Are My Tomatoes Ready Yet? Is actually finished. I have another book in my head. I need to get it out. Uncle Buddy used to do that, and that's a friend of mine who used to have a lot of jobs. Like he did a lot of stuff. Every time I do something, I used to do that.
Yeah.
Look, let me tell you how to do this. I know how to do it because I used to do it back in 1980. So okay,
Right.
so everything. But I want to make that a testament to the ingenuity of our people,
Yeah.
to the creativity, to the things that we had to do to survive. Excuse me. Those things that we had to learn how to be good at because we had to survive. So if
Right.
one thing wasn't working, we had to have something else.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
Uncle
Gotcha.
Buddy
Gotcha.
used to do that. And what's the other one? I had another one that slipped my mind. I really need to write it down because it slipped my mind just like that. So
You got a lot going on up there, man.
man, it's busy up here. It's
I
running
know
around.
it is. I know it is. And
And then
the other thing that I wanted to make certain that we got to is that you actually provide training for educators who want to teach their students how to garden and how to farm. Tell me about that, man.
man, I figured out, and this is one of those things I do it. The first time that post that I did that I said God just told me to do it because I wasn't gonna do that post. That was to my educators. It
Mm,
said, if you want, if you now is the time. This was in July of one year. Now is the time to start planting these so that they can start looking like that. The time to plant a garden is when you first get back to school, because when you first get back to school, you've got from August to December before the kids go home for the holidays. Well, that's exactly when greens grow during the
mhm,
fall, August to December. So you want to get them started early so they can get the root system set and get the growing. Well, a lot of teachers didn't know that. Everybody wants to do a spring garden. Well, by the time it's warm enough to do a spring garden, those kids got about 4 more weeks before they go home for the summer. So
mhm,
that's is a great time to start it academically if you want to talk about it. But if you want to get your hands on it, the time to do it is the fall. But a lot of people, because our people have really kind of gotten away from the skill. Most people have, in fact. Again, we're only farmers are only 2 to 3% of the population. Black farmers are 1% of the 2%. So most people have gotten away from growing. So I wanted to offer a course that allowed people to get their hands dirty with someone who kind of knew what he was doing, wanted to talk to you about it, tell you a little bit about it. So if you had questions, we could talk about it and get it worked out. So I'm really looking forward to doing some stuff with teachers and getting our teachers involved. Because every time I do a class with kids, and I put the pictures on Facebook. I have adults that say, "You do adults? You teach adults too?" Yes, we do. When the farm, that's one of our expansions, but that's one of the things that we're really working on. When the farm does expand out, we are going to have some classes there. So we're going to, matter of fact, I'm going to have classes there, and I will probably rent space out so that you could have your own garden bed, so that you
mhm,
could grow some stuff. You could come up here and grow some stuff. If you didn't have space, you could grow your own greens. Let's say you want to, for this year, you want to grow all the family collard greens. We can
mhm.
give you a little space and you can grow that, and you get a little bit of guidance with it.
Oh, wow. Man, that is fantastic. And I know that even I mean, you will offer these classes district-wide, you'll offer them at community centers, you'll offer 'em, even along with the purchase of the books. The books will come along with that, uh, setup.
Yes, I do a bulk sale for districts. So I definitely wanted to get into the district level so that we can break it down to different schools. If you can start at the district level, then you get to not just one school, so you're not just doing onesies and twosies, but you've got schools in that district. So we get the bulk book sales, $1,000, thousand books, excuse me, not $1,000, thousand books, for a bulk sale, and we can pass those books out to each and every child in an elementary school level. I start kids out young. I think that if you
Hmm.
start them out young, we've got some great high school and maybe some middle school programs, but some great high school programs. I want to get kids started out interested in it while they're young. So I wrote the book to talk to that age group. Buy the book for all of the kids in the school, and then teach the teachers how to teach the class. So now
Right,
we can do refresher courses annually. So now, and then once the farm is set up, you can bring the kids to the farm so that
right,
they can see things. So now we've got these kids immersed. So we may not have every kid in the school decide to be a farmer. We don't need that. But if I get you out on the farm and you see where there's a problem that you can fix, maybe you should be an engineer.
right,
Maybe
right,
you can be a scientist. Maybe you can take some of the plants that we grow and extract a nutrient in it that does a particular thing. Maybe there's a cancer fighter in a plant that we haven't figured out yet, and maybe you should figure it out.
right. And see, and I think that's the thing that I love about what you're doing because not only is it a fun way to engage the students, not only is it fun for the instructor and the students, but it also reinforces things like the STEM based education. It reinforces those things that are so vital to, to our educational system, and it opens up doors for students who may not be athletes, for students who may not be talented in music, for students who may not fit the typical role. He could open up something in them that would set them on a path that could change their lives, man. And that's something that's amazing and to be commendable. Well, I tell you, man, this has been a great conversation, and I ran how people could get in contact with you, and that was at Ashford Family Farms. Let me run it again so folks can see it. That
Yeah,
was at Ashford Family Farms at gmail.com. That's
yeah,
Ashford Family Farms at gmail.com.
yeah.
I mean, and just to either get the books or learn more education about farming and gardening, or just to have that conversation because you're about community development, and I really appreciate that. But there's one last question that I have for you, man, as we wrap
Okay.
this up. So, if you were able to ascend to the highest peak on planet Earth and you could deliver a message that every human would hear, would understand, and possibly internalize, what would that message be?
That's a good question. Um, you'd have to craft a message that they could really pick up on. Build each other, because if it was a simple message, build each other, build each other's business, build each other's dreams, build each other's hopes, develop each other. We're communal people. We came from tribes that work together. This whole strike off on your own and making on your own success, pull yourself up by your bootstraps is bull crap. First of all, who gave you the boots? How'd you get them? Nobody's ever pulled themselves up by them bootstraps. Nobody who ever did anything great did it by themselves. Build each other. And I guess that's pretty broad, but that gives you a lot of room to work in it.
No, absolutely. That's absolutely beautiful, man, and I appreciate that. So not only is that the message that you would say, that's the message that you have been living, my brother. As I said, ever since a child, ever since we were children, that has been your attitude. I remember when you were at state, and I remember how you evolved and changed there. I remember after you graduated and how you evolved and changed, but every step of it has been, hey, listen, let's do this together. Let's figure out how we can grow each other. And so
Yeah.
that has been your thing. So, man, I really appreciate your time today, and I thank you for sharing your insights. I thank you for sharing your journey with us, and for me, this was not just a conversation. This was really talking with my guy. This was really talking with my brother, someone who I have looked up to um, since we met at the fence. Uh,
Yep.
and and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for you, man. I'm thankful for what you do, man. So be on the
It,
lookout, man. I'm looking for great things from Ashford Family Farms, man.
Thank you, man. You got a dark skinned brother blushing, man. You can't tell because I'm dark, but
Yeah,
appreciate you,
man.
boy.
I
Appreciate you,
appreciate you,
man.
man. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, listen, folks. I um I absolutely love that conversation. We learned so many jewels within that conversation. We talked about community. We talked about building each other. We talked about legacy. We even talked about the philosophy of how a community, if we band together, no one failed. And honestly, that flies in the face of what we've been taught. But you know what? It's time to try something new. It's time to try something different. And so I want to thank Dexter for that. Remember, it's ashfordfamilyfarms@gmail.com. Get in contact with this brother. Link up, support. See how he can help you in your situation, whether you're an educator, whether you're someone who is interested in farming, whatever it is, get in contact with him because I believe that he certainly can help with that. And I want to thank you for listening to this edition of the My Big Full Authentic Life podcast. As you know, we are growing. This is just season 2, and we're growing. And this season, we're going to go deeper. We're going to go further. And so what I'd like you to do is if you're watching us on YouTube, I'd like you to like it, subscribe to it, and share it. That way the algorithm can spread it out to more people. And why is that important? Because in the time that we live in, we need something positive. We need something uplifting. We need something that unifies us and helps us to become better humans. And that is what the focus of this show is. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that smash button, subscribe, and share it. And if you're listening to this on however you get your podcast, drop us a review, send us a like, subscribe so you can catch the new episodes as they come. And I am LaMondré Pough, and I want to thank you again for listening to the podcast today, for joining us today. And I want to remind you that you should live big, you should live full, and you should live authentic. And I love you, and I appreciate you for joining us today. Take care. Until next time.